The Four Knights of the Apocalypse, Chapter 145, Family Battle. And King reveals that he has no idea who those intruders are, but that entering the fairy kingdom without permission and treating his precious son like that is an unforgivable sin, for which they will have to pay the price, an extremely strict punishment. However, Kilbegan calmly asks, "But Mr. Fairy King, the way you treated young Mertle isn't so different, is it?" And King could have gone to sleep without that, so much so that Sin is speechless. And Kilbegan goes on to say, "Young Mertle, don't hold back the darkness in your heart any longer." Seeing her son's condition, a worried Diane calls his name. Mertle then asks her a question, "Mom, have you ever really loved me?" Diane quickly replies that she has. But Mertle calls Diane a liar. The boy tells her that his father didn't give the elixir to him, but to nations, and I'm sure you're just like him, you've all abandoned me. You abandoned me. Mertle surrenders to the darkness, becoming a chaotic version of what he so longed to be, a giant and a fairy. Seeing this happen right before their eyes drove King and Diane to despair. But for Kilbegan this was the moment he had been waiting for. Now, that was the signal. The invaders split up, Kilbegan going one way while the others went the other way. And King, for his part, just shouts at them not to run away. However, his attention soon turns to the chaotic Mertle who has simply destroyed the Guardian. Going after the invaders or containing Mertle, what a king would do or what a father would do. Soon, however, the king hears Diane's voice, King, don't worry, I'll take care of Mertle." And the fairy king says he understands and trusts his beloved. But someone else, who also trusts them both, is Sixus, who advises that his father had better hurry, because those invaders are going after the ancient elixir. He tells him that their leader is probably trying to attract his attention, so that his allies can steal the elixir hidden in his throne. But King doesn't seem to be that worried. With a serene countenance, he suggests, "So how about we take their cheap bait?" Sixtus doesn't understand, but then his father explains and makes a request. "Sixtus, I know you don't like this, but can I count on you to eliminate the pawns? As for the elixir, it'll be fine, because it can't be obtained without the sound of my voice and my own words." And faced with this scenario, Sixtus says yes, but at the same time, he blames his father for being responsible for causing all this confusion. With this resolved, King ends up using the 8th form of Chastifol, the Garden of Polem, to protect nations and Tyra. Finally, he asks nations to hold out just a little longer. Once the situation is under control, he promises to heal him. Meanwhile, Mertle, totally out of control, demands that he be given the elixir so that he can drink it. The dark pressure manifested by Mertle affects Diane and her brothers. And Tyra in the Pole Garden begs Mertle to stop. Xana and Zillion, on the other hand, question what he thinks he's doing to Mom, and both try to restrain their brother with an insane series of attacks from his earthen fists, Quad Hammer. Belt, meanwhile, uses her magical ability to immobilize Mertle with her vine chains. Belt then asks Mertle to calm down, otherwise he could be seriously hurt if he continues to get out of control like that. But neither of their voices could reach Mertle, who, in a state of rage, breaks free of the vines and completely destroys the earthen fists. Several pieces of debris and a dense curtain of dust are thrown in the direction of his brothers. Tyra can no longer look at this scene. Shaken, she asks nations what they're going to do, because if they carry on like this, Mertle certainly will. But to Tyra's surprise, Nation stands up and says, "Then we'll protect them, Mertle and everyone else too." And miraculously, Nation's arm, which had previously been broken, was normal, and Nations himself said he didn't quite understand what had happened, because before he knew it, it had healed completely. Curious, Tyra asks if this wasn't the work of a strange spirit. But the herbalist didn't understand what she was saying, but the fairy told him that it was no big deal, that it might just have been his imagination, and that the important thing was that he was all right. Meanwhile, Mertle was attacking her brothers while shouting, "You're all despicable." But before the worst could happen, someone stood in front of the children. It was Diane who asked her children to stay away now. For that was a mother's job to do. And while Diane kept her promise to look after Mertle, King was on Kilbegan's tail. The Fairy King was about to catch up with him. But before he could, Kilbegan began to recite a long spell. Double enchantment, phantom army of darkness and tracking enchantment. And after casting this powerful spell, Kilbegan simply says, "Now die King of the Fairies." Thousands of specters are thrown in King's direction. However, the Fairy King smiles as he summons his spirit weapon. True Chastifol Spirit Spear, first form, Chastifol, Divine Cut. And with just one strike, the king repels all the specters. And then he tells a little secret: "I lived with a sorceress who did irrational things and broke rules. But you're no match for her." And on the way to the king's throne, those invaders wreak havoc in the fairy kingdom, attacking giants and defenseless fairies. Until they finally reach the Mushroom Tower, where the throne of the Fairy King and the elixir are located. But as they reach the top, they have no idea where the elixir might be kept or hidden. Although they could easily feel an extremely powerful and pure magical reaction. And this was for them a confirmation that the elixir really was there. But to their surprise, someone decides to help them by saying, "Bingo, you got it right, however, none of you will get your hands on the elixir. And you know why, because I, Sixus, will be your opponent." Fairy Kingdom versus Eternal Kingdom. The struggle between these two sides reaches its climax. The second eldest brother will fight with all his might to save his brother who has fallen into darkness and despair. Continued in the next chapter entitled, Love Melts Curses Like Ice.